The time for change is now.
If you care about me when I do this,
or when I do this,
you should care about us when we do this.
I won't always be an athlete, but I will forever be a Black woman.
You've had my back here.
Now, have my back here. No one should feel unsafe due to the color of their skin.
All lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
Join us in the fight to end systemic racism.
Black lives matter. Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
I'm so excited that you've taken time out to tune in to the Ella Johnson Show. I hope that you enjoy the broadcast. I hope you'll laugh. I hope you'll cry. But I hope that you'll be moved by what you hear. Well, my guests are very special to me, and so are you. So I want you to sit back, enjoy the show. What you can become depends on what you can overcome. Yes, I'm so excited about my children's book that's coming out, and I'm looking for some mahogany kids. I'll tell you about that later. And now it's time for the Ella Johnson Show. Hello, everyone, and it's time for the Ella Johnson Show. How is your Thursday going for you guys? I hope everything is going well where you are, wherever that is. As you could tell, I have some awesome people with me here on the broadcast for tonight, and I am so excited to have all of them because we're going to have a very good conversation tonight. Listen, I truly believe in Black history. Truly. And, last week, Terry Clausell said something that was so profound to me. She said that we really don't know our history, a lot of people, because we don't search for it. So I want to be responsible in that by bringing shows to you that will help us learn and talk about candidly our Black history. Now, tonight, we're going to talk about the Tulsa massacres, and we're going to talk about the Rosewood massacre. Of course, on June 1st, we just celebrated 100 years of the Tulsa massacre. So because I live in Florida now, and my girl Lawanna is from Florida here, so I decided to throw in Rosewood because both of them bear some resemblance. And we definitely need to talk about it because if we don't talk about our history, we'll repeat it. So I want to welcome all of my guests to the show. First, we have Lawanna Gelzer. She is a civil rights activist here in Orlando. She is the civil rights activist. Right. And she's also the president of the National Action Network chapter here in Orlando. Welcome to the broadcast again, Lawanna.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Then we also have a friend to the show, Pastor Chip Owens. I think we're going to call the show Ella Johnson Chip, because he's here and he always comes with some good information. But he is the pastor of Transformation Church in Atlanta, GA. Welcome to the broadcast again.
It's always good to be here, Ms. Ella.
Yes. Y'all see all those books behind him? Oh, he's going to share a lot of stuff with us. Then we have a newcomer to the scene. We have Dr. Charles Dent out of Mobile, Alabama, and he's joining us. He's the president and CEO of Dent Ministries. where they are changing a life, one life at a time. So welcome to the broadcast, Dr. Charles Dent.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, are you guys ready to have a good conversation?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm ready to learn.
Me too, Lawanna. That's what I said, because we have, some very good information that's flowing. I can see it flowing already. And I'm excited. And for those of you that are tuned into the broadcast, I want to first thank you for watching from either YouTube or Facebook. Whichever one you're watching from, please share the broadcast. But I just want you to know, if, once the show is over, I'm going to load it to my Facebook page so you guys will be able to take a look at it for those of you that missed live, right? Well, guys, what do you think about it? We just celebrated 100 years, Tulsa Massacre. It wasn't a good memory, but it's something that we need to talk about, right?
Well, if you notice, the media said that President Biden is the first sitting president to even acknowledge it and give some kudos to it. So that's his story altogether.
Yeah, because he actually went there, right?
Yes.
And addressed them. I think that's progress. That's progress, right, Pastor Chip?
Yes, it's definitely progress. It's a little disheartening at the same time, especially given the fact that we are now 4 years post our first African American president. But that goes to show that even being a Black person in the system, you have to play the game.
Wow. Well, yeah, and I think that we have to play the game and put it towards where it benefits us, though. And I think it starts with knowledge, knowing where we came from. Because I think, Lawanna, sometimes when you have these people going sideways about, oh, I don't believe we need to talk about this, it's because they don't know their history. And they're just listening to what people are telling them. And they're like, well, we should get over slavery. Why? Who told you that? Who told you that we need to get over it and we need to stop talking about it? Who told you that? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So,
you know me, I'm still waiting for my 40 acres and that mule. I mean, reparations is important. I mean, we were talking about Tulsa, but let's be honest, as an economics major, the economic base, the community, the country, those African-American families have not recuperated what they lost. And it was generation of wealth lost. And that is the economic divide that a lot of times people don't want to acknowledge, that is been happening for 400 plus 1 year now. So yeah, free labor, economics is true. So when people say that, it's the sound bites. Well, my family didn't enslave nobody, or yes, your family did, but you are benefiting from it today. You are benefiting. So please stop trying to tell me you don't have. I mean, for every dollar a female make is $70 cents for a white female. But what is the net worth of an African American woman? All of our net worth together is $5. Each one of us are worth only $5. So you are benefiting from what you destroyed. And so please don't tell me you might have not, your family didn't participate. I always respond, but boy, do you benefit it now. Even with your zip codes. I know we're going away from it, but let's just be honest. They did a special. Zip codes for insurance. If you live in an African-American community, don't you pay higher insurance rate? So even your gas. So, it's all around us. But
that's a very good point, Lawanna, because if we're going to start talking about Tulsa, the man Gurley, when he started and created and bought these 40 acres, that is exactly what he had in mind, Dr. Charles and Pastor, is that he was like, listen, we can't get loans from the white banks. So he had to give the money to the Black people so that they can open their businesses. So let's talk about Tulsa, because one thing, guys, listen, those of you that have tuned into this broadcast, these stories, Tulsa and Rosewood, they both bear very resemblances here. They were both started because of a lie from a white woman on a Black man. Let's just be real, right? So let's start talking about Tulsa. Because there are people that say, well, what is this Black Wall Street thing? You know, I heard some rumblings about it. Well, tonight you're going to hear the whole story and on about Rosewood. But let's talk about Tulsa. Pastor Chip, I want you to start out telling us, give us a little background of how Tulsa came into existence for the Blacks. How did we come to know of Tulsa?
One of the things that that we should bring up is, as you said, there is a specific section in Tulsa called the Greenwood neighborhood. It's about, as you said, 40 acres. And you had from, I believe, around the time of the abolition of slavery up until this time 100 years ago, where this African American community was self-sustaining. There were at least 20 some odd churches, 2 hospitals. They had access to about 4 or 5 private planes, school system. I mean, everything that you could need, it was right there in that community, and it was all Black. And just like we've known, the schools came out of the churches. So everything that, like I said, everything that they needed was right there in that Greenwood community. And one of the things that I always say is that Black people serve 3 purposes for the American system. And if you cannot or will not provide those 3 things, the American system will discard those Black people. That is labor, that's sex and entertainment. And one of the things that got this whole thing started off with the massacre of Black people was hypersexuality, or the idea of hypersexuality, where Black people, or Black men in specific, went after white women, which was a narrative that was not true. It's very inaccurate. And if we do a real view of history, it is the exact opposite. So as you said, there was a lie that was initiated that Black men wanted to go after a white woman. Fear was stoked up, and they, in the words of the Gap Band, who is from Tulsa, Oklahoma, they dropped a bomb on them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to give a little bit more history to that too, because if we break it down, they were thriving. And basically at the end of the day, Lawanna, the white people just didn't like it. They were jealous.
Absolutely.
They were jealous of what the Black people were able to accomplish without them. And they were looking at this like, I think they were just waiting on something to do, just to do it. Anything would have helped. What do you think about that, about the jealousy part of it, Lawanna?
It's always been that. You didn't want us to shop in your stores, therefore we created our own. But let's be honest about America. When we were not allowed to shop in their stores all throughout the South, especially, those communities thrived. When desegregation came about, all of those businesses, it might be better on the white side of town or something like that. So the jealousy has always been there. But I have to be honest, I've been doing a lot of research, and I know we're talking about these 2, but it's hundreds.
Yes, they are.
I mean, just last year to vote, July Perry lost his life, but they weren't just because he wanted to vote. And it's not because he was going after a white woman. He owned more land than white people did. He was a very prosperous business owner in Orlando, Winter Garden, Ocoee. So it's always been the jealousy of what we have, and therefore we must take it from them. I always tell a lot of my friends, I was taught that a lot of people who are Caucasians are barbarians. They were taught that they must do better than us because of the color of their skin. No, it's because of your work ethics. And we made strides, even though we were enslaved for almost 400 years, and we got our freedom, but we still didn't find it out until 1865.
All right.
So it's like, come on, people. It's always been that way.
Yeah.
So when you are doing better than they are, it's a jealousy, envy, and they'll use any excuse. I mean, the race riots are numbered. The summer, the red summer of 1919. You guys know about all of that. I'm looking at this list, and I'm just, we've been doing a education, a component with our Hall of Injustice of all the people that lost their lives, the police violence. But when you start counting up the numbers of individuals, this has always been their excuse.
Right.
White people who knows who love us the most, white men have always, as if a white woman is a pride. No,
right.
It was two stories. The one story was she was attracted to him because he was very wealthy. So all of a sudden she screamed. And then there's a story that she came forward and said, no, we were kissing because I care. We have a relationship. So it's always that. But when you want to get people hyped up, that's what you have said. And it's been more than that story told all over the country, all over this country. A black man. And don't forget the nation. I know I'm talking, but the movie had came out right around that time about the birth of the nation. So we are savages. Our black men love white women, and we got to do something about it.
Well, yeah, that's true, Lawanna, because they talked about that in that movie too. But Dr. Charles, I want you to chime in on what she was saying.
Well, I think a lot of times, everybody got a history. Black people got history, white people got history. Everybody got a background. They got a backdrop. They got a story of how they came to the conclusion where they are. One white guy told me the truth. He said the biggest thing is that we're really fearful of black men. It's a lot of fear factors happen. And so sometimes, and we look at it as I said this when I was in college. I think the biggest thing we did wrong was try to integrate ourselves into their culture, and we lost so much. We lost our communities. We lost our identity trying to be like them when they were trying to be like us. They wanted what we have. And I think sometimes the confusion has come in our identity these days is our kids are trying to find themselves, and they trying to find themselves in whatever they can, find meaning to. And I think some of the things that happen, it's a reoccurring thing that we don't know our history. We don't know how to collaborate together, to walk together, to have a conversation, even if we don't understand it. How people say we can agree to disagree. We just don't understand each other. And we don't grow. We don't try to understand where that person coming from. Because I grew up in Augusta, Georgia. I went through a ride in 1972 in Augusta. I know my history. I know what it was like when the Panthers came. I know what it's like when James Brown was in Augusta, Georgia, and how he did that. I know all about that stuff because I walked through that stuff. I lived through that. We can hear Tulsa, we can hear Redwood, but when you have actually lived through it, it's a totally different story. Like my dad kept us safe. It was the key thing was keeping family safe. So my dad locked us in the house. He had to go outside because he was a fireman. So he locked us in. He told us what to do if anything happens in our house. So he prepared us to deal with whatever the situation it may be. And I think sometimes our children don't understand history, and they don't understand because listen, American history, they're going to repeat the same George Washington, all the other stuff, the Massacres Proclamation. They're going to repeat constantly to our kids and everything. But we have to educate our own kids. We have to be the ones that say, like in pastors and churches, we need to educate people because people don't even understand the Black presence in the Bible. That we talk about that. We said, I remember one white guy told me this one time. He said, Charles, how do you feel that you guys are cursed? And I said, you know what? Okay, I know you're going with this thought. And I said, it's cool what you're saying. I said, but if that's true, Jesus became a curse from us, removed a curse from us. But I said, anytime God cursed with color in the Bible was white. It was always leprosy. Leprosy is white. It was never black. And he said, well, that's not fair. Okay, it was okay. It's fair when it was us, but it's not fair that now you understand the truth. We don't bank people on truth. We bank people on hidden truth, little small parts of truth. We don't tell them the whole truth, nothing but the truth. We don't tell them it's an economic thing, y'all. It's about money. It's about money. It's about who's going to control that little green cent, that money. And they don't want us having any control of it because if we can control our money, we can control our community, we can control our schools, we can control what happens to us. That's the biggest issue. They don't want us to get our hands on the 40 acres and a mule, because you gave us 40 acres and a mule. We'll plow it up, we'll make it work, we'll do our best with it, we'll create a crop, and then we'll share with the next one, because we were about sharing with people. You had a problem in the community, we share with each other, make sure it's a community. It was not like it is now. So I think a lot of things that's happening is a result of our own ignorance and not want to tell the true story. It's about money. It's about having the power, because whoever controls the money controls
the game. Say that. Listen, I don't want to assume that everybody watching the broadcast knows this story. So we're going to briefly go through the story. What happened that day? There was a black man. He was a shoe shiner. He's 19. Was he 19 years old? Yeah, I think 19 years old. His name is Dick Rowland. And he was getting on the elevator. The white woman was on the elevator. Something happened where maybe he bumped into her or something like that. And she starts screaming. Somebody heard it, called the police. And this is what happened when the Tulsa Tribune got it. This is what showed up in the newspaper. Okay. They already basically said he's guilty. He's going to be tried in municipal court, all because somebody said this. Okay. They said he was attempting to assault this 17-year-old girl. So this is the kind of stuff the media works against us too, Lawanna and Pastor and Dr. Charles. They put this there. So naturally, what do you think the white people are going to do? They're upset. So now you got a mob. Then the black people came down to the police station as well to protect him, because they knew that he was going to get lynched because it was a white woman involved. That was the history of us back then. Black men were getting lynched all the time over white women, and they were lying, just as it was in this case. So something happened while they were at the police station. Shot rang out. Next thing you know, we have this massacre. They destroyed everything, Pastor Chip. So talk to me about that day when you heard the chain of events that day. Hearing it now, what does it do to you when you hear what happened? How they were just thriving, and all of a sudden, they even brought planes in, Lawanna. They wanted to make sure they got this. None of that had anything to do with this young man who was allegedly accused of assaulting this 17-year-old girl. But they wanted to destroy it because that's something they wanted to do anyway. And this was an excuse to do it.
I will agree with that statement. And that's just what it is. They already wanted to do something to this neighborhood to destroy this economic system that was already thriving and going on. And to be honest, we can't use the word mob unless we are calling the American system the mob, because you had police officers that were involved. You had judges that were involved. And for those that don't believe me, we are 100 years post that event, and nobody's ever been charged with what's going on. When we go back and talk about the idea of reparations, there has been no such thing as reparations, and nothing even close to it. And if we look at any other racial group that has had some type of injustice done to them, they all have had some type of reparations, from Native Americans to the Japanese in World War II, to even just here recently. I talked about this on Facebook. We look at the Asian hate piece that came through with what was going on here in Atlanta. They got legislation pushed through in less than a month. And African Americans cannot get a bill on voting and or police reform pushed through in over a year. So I say that the American system has a huge disdain for those people that are Black, and it's evident even from the occurrences that happened in Tulsa. Just to jump over to Rosewood real quick. There was some level of reparations with them that where they said that any person that is a descendant of those people in Rosewood could go to a Florida university for free. But there are 25 massacres in the United States in between the years of 1863 and 2015. there's a whole 400 years of slavery, and there's still no level of reparations because the black person does not mean a hill of beans to the American system unless, number one, you can provide some free or reduced labor, you can sexualize for the dominant system, and or you can entertain them. We have no problem with entertainers, basketball players, and everything like that, unless they shut up and dribble.
That's right. That's what they said on Fox.
We want them to dance and gyrate all over TV and be half naked, and we're fine with them then. But when they have legitimate businesses, they're able to sustain themselves, and they show that they don't need the hand or get themselves out of the system of white America, then it's a problem. When we look at even Martin King, I love what Dr. Dent said when he was talking about the idea of we try to integrate ourselves. Even Dr. King himself, one of the drum majors for integration, said himself, "I fear that I have integrated my people into a burning house." Because of that very thing, we lost sight of who we were and what we really had. And that's one of the when we even talk about this notion of history. History is in the hands of the dominant culture. Whoever is dominating gets to write the story. So that's why people don't get to hear about these stories. Even though we're talking about two of the main stories, like I said, it's 25 massacres of Black people from the time right before the Emancipation Proclamation till the Charleston shooting in 2015. It's even more than that.
Yeah, so, I have a list of them. I go all the way back. My list goes all the way back to 1712, the New York City slave uprising, and it was 16. Not to correct you, but I know we're at 40. I'm counting plus 40 since 1900.
Yeah, and just to go to that, it was a Black man that gave his life for the foundation of this country to begin with, let alone the actual building of this country on the backs of Black people. So to hear about what happened in Tulsa, it's just disheartening, and it goes to show the barbaric nature of the dominant culture. For one person to have one interaction with one person and you destroy an entire community, an entire economic system, it's just barbaric. And
let me
one of the
ask you
things that they do is that you demonize the Black person so you have a reason or a justification to be who you really are.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Dr. Charles, do you think that that Black people are wrong to say, well, white people started the violence? Are we wrong to say that? I've heard that in so many circles.
Because I don't, I think you asked the question, many questions. It's like the chicken before the egg. Who really started violence? You go how far you want to go back to say when did it start? You want to go back. I mean, how far? You want to go back to what? Just this country, or you want to go? How far are you going to go? I think the reality is this, and this is my take, especially being in ministry and all this other stuff. I can tell you this. I feel this. This is my personal opinion. If this country was really established on Christian principles, why do we have all these massacres? If this country was, I really think the white man rebelled against God and he ended up bringing his evil ways into this society. And now the only thing he's trying to fix us when he's the one that's broken. I really think there's so many things that we have this deception, because I think the biggest thing is self-deception. I'm okay, you okay, we're all okay. No, you're not okay, because you still want to address systemic racism. You want to address the massacres that happen. You want to address those are tied to your own family lineage. That your legacy is connected to this. You don't even acknowledge that this is your family's bloodline. And you won't come across the table and you say, yeah, because just like you say, well, if we go just 2 generations back, we have this generation that was who built these systems on systemic racism, and their children, grandchildren, still have them. And so you going like, you telling me we won't even have this conversation? So I think when you talk about the violence, where to start, you know, it started. I think the moment they came to this country and thought that they were going to be independent, that's when I think all of it started. And they tried to do this apart from what they're supposed to do. And we just came into their system. And their system, we didn't fit. We don't fit into their system. And they got upset because they can't make us. It's go back to the Kuta Kinte and go back to those movies, Roots and stuff. You can't get me to fit in your system, so you want to beat the hell out of me until I do. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
Do we still have that going on, Lawanna? What Dr. Charles just said?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even with the movement with George Floyd, as everybody say Black Lives Matter, I call it the George Floyd movement because we've had Black Lives Matter with Trayvon Martin being being killed, assassinated, if you ask me, in Sanford, Florida. It's just been so much. And he's correct about. That's why I call people Caucasian, they're barbarians. They're always about, if you know what a barbarian is, it's to take that I don't have. It's to take away. It's like I'm entitled. And he's right how it came, because I was taught in school, it was freedom of religion and freedom of speech. But maybe he's correct. What type of religion? What did you bring? Or was you not influenced in your country? And you wanted to come over here and bring that so you could be number one. I don't know, but I can tell you this much. You've been killing my people for too long. And you've been robbing and stealing. And I don't want to hear, give us another chance. It's how much more do a people need to suffer through? I mean, it's just.
Lawanna, you're out there and you're with the politicians a lot. Do we do enough as... I heard on Don Lemon the other night where somebody asked him, when will the Democrats throw a punch or something like that? So do you think that we don't do enough? Do you think we do too much forgiving? Do you think we lay down too much? Should we do more? What do you think?
Well, don't bring the Democratic Party in here, because you know how I feel about all parties. I don't vote for nobody because of no party affiliation. I call you out for what you are. So let's take they don't throw no punches because it's not hitting them. They have taken African American votes for too long. And they have taken granted we will be there. That's why they don't like me with the Democratic Party. But when you need to win an election, you pick up the phone and call me. So it's not about that. It's about throwing a punch. It's about educating our young people. I went to school with a lot of Jewish young ladies. I went to, and one thing, they've always been taught their history. They know their history. So when we start teaching our history, why all of a sudden in a state, I can't think of the state, we can't teach history that's uncomfortable. Well, doggone it, you didn't live through the uncomfortableness of it. My people are still dealing with this. So we need to stop trying to make people feel comfortable with our pain. Pain is pain. When the George Floyd vigil, we had the candlelight vigil, everybody was on that ground for 9 minutes and 29 seconds of pain. And everybody was struggling to get back up. And you're talking about 400 plus 1 years of pain, and you're telling me how I should feel? You don't walk a day in my shoes, and I don't give that to you. You don't have control of that. So if you got a problem with me putting it in your face, change your ways, because I'm not doing anything wrong.
Now, I got two pastors here. I want both of you to give me your take on this. Y'all heard Lawanna, because she speaks for a lot of people. She definitely speaks for me. At what point do we apply this Christian love to this pain that she's talking about and forgive? Or should we? I really want that take on this, because I think we get it mixed up sometimes and then we don't do anything. So I got two pastors here. Let's start with you, Pastor Chip.
I think that one of the main issues that we have is a misconception of biblical love. We get biblical love mixed up with the Hallmark Channel and think that that's what love looks like. But I'm not a fan of Paul by any means. But when you look at what Paul says love is, then you see that it's very deep and layered. And one of the things that it says is that love does not rejoice in wrongdoing, right? And it doesn't cover up stuff. And so I think one of the things that those of the dominant culture require and request of us, and this is where I took issue with some of our people in the Charleston situation, and I think that I'll go into that later. But when we look at this thing called love, in order for us to really love one another, I got to call you out. And if I don't say anything to help you be a better person or to make the thing right or to make righteousness come about the situation, then I don't actually love you. I'm not actually displaying the love that Jesus said that we should display when he says, love your neighbor as yourself and love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And if I just allow for you to keep doing things and just sweep it up under the rug, I actually hate you. So I think that especially in our American context, when people say things like "shut up and dribble" or "can you just get over it," they're actually wanting us to show the same disdain that they have. But one thing that I think that our people have is a bigger heart than that, just by nature. In order to forgive a person and to experience levels of holistic healing, one of the things that you have to do, especially in times of trauma, is you have to actually address the trauma that you've experienced. Because if you don't, you can't heal from what you don't address. If we look at, a doctor, if they never go in and assess the situation and attack the actual thing that's harming you, you can die from it. And so I think that's where we are in our nation, that we're at a space and a point now where we're at a catastrophic point, a toxic space, because we have absolutely refused to deal with the cancer of our original sin. And it's metastasized, and it is at a very dangerous level. And it's only coming back. As you can see, the cancer known as President Trump is already trying to come back. And, all of this different type of stuff. But, yeah, I'll let y'all.
So you preach it. You preach. It's supposed to be back in August.
Which is a lie from the pit of hell.
Well, I'm gonna just let me comment on this because I really need to get off the call because I got to be somewhere. I'll say this. I remember when I was taught face it. You have to learn to face what it really is. What this really is. What is it? And I think everybody, we give it a definition based on how we perceive it. Our perception of things, so we define it a certain way. And so everybody has a perception, but they also give it a definition of what's going on. So I think when you face it, like what's the real situation? What's the real deal? We can't talk about justice because one thing I'm writing this piece, you cannot have a society without justice. So if you don't have justice, you can't have a society. And since we don't have justice, what kind of society we really have created? The second thing is, I think we need to not only face it, but we got to trace it to its root. You get to the root of it because the tree is still bearing fruit. We may have cut it down at the trunk, but it's still trump. It's still bearing fruit. And I think sometimes we don't want to be honest with it, that we cut it down, but we never got to the root of it. We didn't get, civil rights movement didn't get to the root of it. I don't care what anybody say, it didn't get to the root of it.
Absolutely.
If it did, why are we seeing the cycle recycle stuff?
Right.
Because we didn't get to the root of it. So we don't want to get to the root of it and say, and then other thing is, we don't want to say how wrong we are. We don't want to say, we could all be wrong in this whole situation. And we're not realizing how wrong we all are. Because I remember when it comes to scripture, he said, if I err, Job said this, my errors remain with me. And so I got to point out the errors that I do have in my life. If I'm the man in the mirror, not the man in the window looking at other people, I'm really looking at myself. I got to really trace get to the root of this and start plowing at the root of it. Because if I'm not honest with it, I'll keep lying to myself. I keep lying to other people that we're all okay, and we're not okay because we're bearing the fruit of it. We're bearing the fruit of it. And then we got to get to a place that we learn what is it that we need to erase, and then how do we replace it? You know, we need to erase a lot of stuff that we have, but we don't know how to get to the root of it. And so when we don't get to the root of stuff, we still get the fruit of it. I think one of the biggest things about love in scripture, and when I was telling my wife, tough love is being tough love towards myself. I need to know how to tell myself no to certain things. No, I don't agree with this. Yes, I agree to that. You know, because a lot of times we think tough love belongs to other people. It belongs to ourselves. That we got to give people tough love. And then my last point is this, is I took a lot out of reading a lot about Nelson Mandela. How Nelson did it in South Africa. I'm going like, why aren't we taking pages out of his book? Right. How he did certain things in South Africa to deal with race issues, to bring reconciliation, but being honest with the people and letting them be honest with themselves. Why haven't we taken enough out of his page, out of his books? Why haven't we, you know, when he was alive, that we made him an ambassador in this country to talk to him about how did you really take down apartheid? How did you really deal with this? But we don't, you know, we think we're the smartest people in the world. We think we don't need to look at other countries. You know what? If you look at the building, I think it's Jefferson Memorial, knowledge comes from the East. It never came from America. It came from Africa. And we don't want to acknowledge that knowledge came from Africa. It didn't come here. It didn't come from Europe. It didn't come from those places. And when people say this, no offense, Chip, but Paul was a black man who was sent into a white culture. He was European. He was not a European. And we failed to understand that they understood something that we don't understand.
Yes.
How did you guys really do this?
Yes.
Because we don't want to be honest with ourselves. You know, there's a whole lot of stuff I just don't know. I don't know how they manage some of these things. But I know this for sure. We are too fearful to be the person look in the mirror and say, I got so many errors in me. I don't know what to do. I need help. As a black man, I say this to black men need help. Men don't know how to help each other and get help from each other. So a white guy said this to me. He said, Charles, anything I could do, let me know. Whatever I could do to help you. I said, that's great. I said, but let me ask you one question. If you needed help from any of us, would you ask me? Or would you go to your other white counterpart? And we won't ask each other because we're fearful of being exposed to things we don't know. And we won't ask. We won't come around and say, hey, Lawanna, I don't know about you in economics. And, you know, my degree was the integration between psychology and theology. The bottom line is, how do we change behavior? How do we shift behavior? Our behavior needs to be shift. And we don't talk about how we're going to get there. We need to talk about how we're going to get there. It's not through the Democratic Party. It's not through the Republican Party. It's not through the independents. It's through us sitting down and have some serious, hard conversations and be honest with where we are and say, you know what? I care about you. You care about me. Let's work this thing out.
Wow.
We really have to do that.
And Miss Ella, one of the biggest things, as far as Dr. Dent said, that root piece is white supremacy. That's what the root is. And one of the reasons why, you know, we couldn't get like what they had in South Africa, number one, by the time that time came around, our numbers were too small. And as far as black people here in this country, as you know, as reversed of the South African population. But we are, you know, that whole idea of white supremacy was a major thing. Now, if we would have been able to attack white supremacy while slavery was going on and black people outnumbered the white people, then it might have been a little bit of a different story. Hence the whole 3/5 compromise and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, white supremacy is the root.
I love that what he said.
Yeah, I do. But that's a part of the history that I think we don't know. The revolts of the enslaved, there were 16 between 1712 and 1842. We did fight. What I've learned in my generation, unfortunately, is after desegregation of the school when I was bussed out of my community, I went through that. And once I was bussed out of, I watched my neighborhood be gentrification. I watched black businesses go out of business because we felt like, so we were thought that what I said earlier about is better on the other side, on the east side of town, on the other side of the tracks. I was taught to assimilate. You got your dreads or your we were told no braids, look like them, talk like them, go to their schools. That's what my generation was taught. Get there. If we get one in the door, then we can. No, we don't need to go through their doors. We got enough among ourselves to have our own doors. And I found myself and a lot of people that thought like me being considered outside and being called radical by African Americans. I'm not radical. I come from a family of farmers that had to fight to get what they were supposed to get, like all the white farmers. That's why they got that major lawsuit. I come from people who used to pick that cotton. That's why I know I didn't want to pick that cotton. I'm sharecropping. I understand that. But we were taught, I got mine, I got my education, I'm doing, baby, you 2 paychecks away from homelessness, just like the majority of us. COVID showed that we had not made a many strides like we thought. Yeah, you see a few people that's doing well, but it's always been a few African Americans that has done well despite all of the things that are against them. But the majority of us, like I said, black women wealth is together collectively. Each one of us are only worth $5. We've not made strides economically. And so if you don't get to the root, systemic racism is embedded in what? Economics, the money, the power of the dollar. That's why you did redlining in our community. It was hard for us to get loans to buy houses. Now, what is the major basis for wealth for African Americans or anybody? A home. And let's just be honest with 2 years ago, the study came out. Same house in one community is worth $50,000 to $100,000 worth more than in the African. The same house. So you're even stealing our wealth there.
Yeah.
And so we're paying more for insurance. You are constantly taking and making it hard for us to go to what line. When if we all just, because I'm really thinking about moving from my house and going back to Paramore where I own 2 homes and not downsizing because I know what it's worth. It's not the house they want. It's the land and the location, proximity to downtown. And then everybody calling me, you want to sell your land, your house. No, I won't sell my house unless you got $1 million because I know what it's worth. Now you call somebody else.
Now let me put something right there. Recently there was an article that came out where young black lady was having her house valued, and she did it twice. They undervalued her house, and she called her white friend to come in and sit in the house, and she got about 2 or 3 times the value of her house because of the white friend. I know that personally because it just happened to my parents. We're trying to get their house valued now, and they have had, I think, 1 or 2 estimates come in as to the value of their house, and their house is sitting on 18 acres of prime property all around the dominant culture of people. And the house was valued at almost $300,000 less than what it's supposed to. Mind you, houses now with no property and hardly no land are going for $3,000 above what they're valued. And they have 18 acres. So with the amount of money that or land that they have, it's supposed to be valued at over $1 million. and it's now being valued in the triple hundred digits.
And what is the equity, value, money, loan, value? So if you attack, that's why they attacked in Tulsa. It was money. Economics. It's when you look at it, the backbone that we built, the free labor.
So I want the people that are watching this broadcast, though, guys, I want y'all to pay attention to this, because we keep talking about economics. That's what Tulsa was really all about. Yes, it gave them an excuse when the white woman said that she was assaulted by a black man. Yep, we're going to take them down. But they wanted to do this because they attacked our economics. And I want you guys to understand something. Nobody has paid, like Pastor said, nobody has paid for what happened to these families. No policy. They have a riot clause in their insurance, so no payments were paid out because of that riot clause. So they got nothing. Nobody went to jail. Nobody paid. It's like it just never happened. And we helped them sweep it under the rug because we don't talk about it. But we're going to talk about it on this show, because if it happened out there, we
haven't recovered economically.
Wow,
they have not. But let's just look at Ocoee, how they stole the land from the people when they left it in the middle of the night. And then you got falsified deeds and exchange of property. They have always done. The town of Eatonville, I mean, the oldest historical township of African Americans, right down the street from us, right here in Orange County. Rosewood, they was jealous. She knew that white woman knew she could blame it on a black man, because she was having an affair with another man, and that's what and he didn't want her no more.
Preach.
Okay. I met her descendant at an event here in Orlando, and she had heard something totally different. But the bottom line is, remember the gentleman, I can't call his name, that came in on the horse and had money and wanted to buy the land? Well, how you get this money? I was in the war just like everybody else. I saved my money. It's always been that. It's always been take what we say legally we can take. They never was going to charge them because they saw no wrong in what they did. Like they said, the gentleman that owned the hotel, it was the best hotel in the country. He could have been Mr. Hilton, but they was jealous. And so what we need to do is...
That hurt when you said that, Lawanna. Oh, that hurt.
Juneteenth holiday, and everybody, we need to have Freedom Day. We're not free. We need to have Freedom Education Day. So you need to know that we don't keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, because we're doomed. They know exactly what we're going to do before we do it most of the time. That's why when we march it, I just march and send a message. I'm about policies. I know that's not going to change. It scared them a little bit because everybody got to see what we've been saying all along. Now you got to see how many black men and women have been killed by law enforcement and never been charged. Hey, I'm in Orlando. How many got shot in the back last year? 3. Any charges left? We got 3 black men shot in the back. And one was you got the wrong person. And so don't tell me we got to have a black state attorney. She black. Both of them been black, and they ain't charged them yet. I need more time. You don't need no more time. Charge the officers. So it's not just black. We don't know our history. And so I learned some time ago by somebody mistakenly bringing this up about the Australia modular. It's a modular of 180 questions. Look it up. You ain't got to believe me that they can predict how much resistance that you're going to get from a community based on what you're doing. Government been using that tactic against us for years. When they get ready to come through our communities with a street or road or divided in two like they did in Greenwood, in Tulsa. Then why did they bring that major highway through? They make it very difficult to recuperate, and because they could. They always bring major highways through our community. Why? It devalues the value of our property. Let's look at why they doing it. And ask yourself the question. Why? They do it because they can, and because when a few of us speak up, you're so busy trying to get the crumbs that you don't realize that we could have got a whole
bunch
cake.
more.
And you took a crumb.
Now,
say, I want the crumbs, Lawanna. I said, get away from me. Get away from me. Because I don't want to work with you, because you done sold us out. But if you don't put them into the equation when you fighting these battles, you're gonna lose, because it's gonna always be crumb snatchers in the group.
Now, Pastor Chip, I wanna talk a little bit about what she's saying, because you're gonna have those people that say, listen, I went to school. I mean, you both are both very educated. You went to school, but yet you still believe that white supremacy is the root that's producing fruit. So what do you say to those black people that are watching this? Is, well, I don't believe all this stuff. I mean, y'all talking about racism. I did what I had to do. I'm living good. I did well for myself. I taught my kids. You people just need to teach your kids how to not be out here on the streets. I hear all of that. And I'm like, somewhere we're having a miscommunication problem, because regardless of all of that, this is still real. It's still real.
The one thing that I would say is that when we talk about white supremacy, I have to give the caveat that whiteness does not just show up in white skin. One of my books that I was reading, I was looking for just a few moments ago, says that whiteness is defined as self-sufficient white malehood or manness. And so if a person tries to assimilate to being as close to a self-sufficient white man as possible, they are also participating in whiteness. And one of the things that with that self-sufficiency is the absence of community. One of the things that we as the African-American community lost sight of in integration is the idea of community. And so whenever we had that community, we had that education. We had that communal idea of being able to check each other's kids, being able to, just all of the characteristics of community that we had. And so the idea of saying you just need to tell your children how to act, it doesn't work like that. We as a community even had an adage that says it takes a community to raise one child. So it's definitely going to take the community to raise all of our children. So what we have to do is try to get some semblance of, well, first of all, get that idea and notion of whiteness out of our mind, allow for ourselves to be detoxified of that foolishness, and then get that sense of community back so that we can do for ourselves. And that's not to push our white brothers and sisters out and all that kind of stuff, because as a human race, we need each other. But we also have to know that in order for us to see what we need to see for Black people, then Black people have to do for Black people, not one Black person.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. What were you going to add, Lawanna?
No, I'm in total agreement. I mean, and just recall that it's going to be very few individuals, because some of us are uneducated about the system and believe that they can maneuver through the system. As long as I got mine, I ain't gonna worry about nobody.
You get yours. Mm-hmm.
And you get yours, and I'm like,
I got mine.
And you know what? Those are the individuals I stay far away from, because I know who the racist individuals are. And when I'm talking policy and doing stuff, I know what their behavior is going to be. But see, I'm not fearful of them. I'm more careful of the ones who say, I got mine, because they're the ones that will try to infiltrate into a meeting and run back and tell Massa what's going on.
That is so true. And I'm glad we're talking about that, because we do not all agree. Blacks, just because we're Blacks, we do not, and neither should we. I mean, I don't think that's ever going to happen. Yeah.
Is that the question we used to get in school? Well, Lawanna, how do Black people think? I don't know, but I can tell you how I think about the situation. And I was taught to respond that way. But how many people were taught to respond that way? And I was a child. I said, I don't know how Black people think about that. But I know how I feel about the incident. And the teachers would just look at me because they were thinking that we all thought and acted alike. And I'm like, no. And I have to be grateful and thankful to my parents and my uncles who taught me, especially how to be a queen. That you are. And I remember distinctly because it came up just recently when we were going through some of my pictures and stuff of one of my teachers when I was moved out of the black school to the white school, and I colored my Santa Claus black. And she said, Santa Claus ain't black, Lawanna, he white. And I just looked, I'm a fourth grader. I looked at her and said, ain't no white man coming down no chimney. And she looked at me. Of course, they called the principal, called my mom, and my mom came to the school, which was important. That was they weren't used to parents coming to school. Well, what did she do? Well, she said, wait, there is no white man bringing no toys to her. But my response as a fourth grader to my teacher, I wasn't disrespectful. I was just telling her the reality of my life and what I had seen. And so my Santa Claus have never been white. I've seen him, but as a child, I knew he was African American, and I colored him brown. But they couldn't comprehend that. And to find that she wrote that when I was leaving in my yearbook, she remembered that. I'm like, I was 20. Are you serious? You're not gonna let? Because she finally admitted a child educated me on something. You taught me something.
Now, Pastor, I want to jump in on that because I know you can't compare the two, but I think that the Caucasians think the same way about God. That's why we see him white on our walls. I know you can't compare God to Jesus to Santa Claus. I understand that. Hello, somebody. But at the same time, it's how they think. Everything good, anything that's coming good has to be white.
Right.
And I think that's part of the problem, Lawanna and Pastor. And they carried that for generation. They teach their kids that. And so we're dealing with it in corporate America and everything. So when you want to try to go and be somebody, you're standing up there with just as many degrees as they do. Somehow yours is just not so good as theirs. We went to the same school. What are you talking about? We have the same education.
You got in because of affirmative action. That's what I was taught. That they lowered the standard for you. Okay. But people will try you. What you need to be prepared for is that people will try you, and what is your response going to be? Because they will try you. They will. And so
now let's go back to Tulsa so we can wrap Tulsa up and then start talking about Rosewood, because Rosewood is in Florida, and that's where Lawanna and I are. No pun intended, Pastor Chip, but that's our place. But Tulsa, I mean, at the end of the day, they destroyed everything. They burned their schools. They had schools, airports, restaurants, churches, hangars. What else? Anything you needed, banks, anything you needed. Everything. One of the best hotels was there. And I like when you said that, Lawanna, it really messed with my spirit when you said he could have been Mr. Hilton. And I thought, wow.
And I heard that because honestly, I do interior design work on the side, but I love structure. And I saw the picture and the woodwork in the facility of the turn of the century. How it was magnificent. Let's just be honest. Why did they burn everything? Why did they pull the furniture out of their homes and their clothes? Because they were jealous. They were living better than they were. That's why they burned everything.
That's what Tulsa looked like, guys. That's what Tulsa looked like before they burned it. And then this is what Tulsa looked like. Look at that. Burned everything. Jealousy. So when people try to tell you that y'all ain't never been nothing, they're lying to you. We have been. Black Wall Street.
And
what were you going to say, Lawanna?
We have to do a good job as well as going back historically from the origins. We see the erasure of Black excellence, even if you were to go to Cairo, Egypt, and look at the hieroglyphics on the walls and how they're whitewashing the hieroglyphics to not show Black and brown skin. One of the things about even cutting off the noses of some of the the statues and things of that nature is to dishonor who they're referencing, and that's just a notion of that white supremacy again. You were talking about Jesus, and one of the things that we find is that everywhere except America, the interpretation of the Christ looks like the people of the land.
Thank you.
And so in Asia, Jesus looks Asian. In most parts of Africa, especially in Ethiopia, Ethiopia houses the oldest Christian church in the world. The first Christian church is the Ethiopian Coptic Church in Ethiopia, and Jesus and every person in the Bible is depicted as a person that is black. However, when you get to the Renaissance, you see that the reimagining of all the characters, and that lens of white supremacy is carried from Eastern Europe to this new nation that is called the colony of England, which would later become the United States of America, a prison colony, prison colonies, if you will. The lowest of the stratum from Europe came over to America. We must say that. So one of the issues is that you had these people who had low status going to a place where they had these established cultures. And now we also have to say that we played a part in that too, because of this notion of power and wanting to expand ourselves. They allowed for other people that look like them to be captured and taken off in exchange for guns to expand their kingdom. But it was exploited by those who were under the guise of white supremacy, and so on and so forth. And there are two things that I wanted to bring up. Miss Lawanna said something about bringing roads and things through black communities. Two things. Number one, the doctrine of discovery. The doctrine of discovery was created by Europeans that said you can discover any unchristian land and call it your own. Then later on in America, we changed that just a little bit and call it manifest destiny, where you can take over any land and claim it for America. That is the nature of European or originated people, to take over what is not theirs.
That is very interesting. That just cleared up so much, Pastor Chip, because now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of this to understand how they were thinking and why things have happened. So we can't not pay attention to that. Okay, we have to look at this stuff and stop just living with the pie in the sky type of thing and saying, oh no, we just got to learn to forgive. I'm past that stuff because I want to get to the root. All right. And I think that's what we're doing tonight. We're getting to the root. But then once we get to the root, Lawanna and Pastor Chip, we know at the root of it is white supremacy. We know that. You have so eloquently said that, Pastor Chip. Now what?
Education. We perish for lack of knowledge. So therefore, I mean, when I started the Hall of Injustice, I thought it was only like 50 to 75 African-American men and women that had been killed by law enforcement in 2020. It was over 300. So when we say their names, I said that's not enough to say their names. I found their faces. So we have a wall of injustice of over 1,000 people that we know of. We stopped in 2019. It was just so much. Now what's happened in 2021, because they now know that Mapping Police Violence and other organizations are tracking this information. Now when we were doing 2021, we noticed that race was unknown and police was withholding names. So I had over 80 between January and May, names withhold or race was unhold or both. And when you read where it was at, and now you did a little bit of research, you knew they were African American. They didn't want nobody to know that they have been killing us still. They haven't stopped. And so when everybody like, oh, Lawanna, what made you do this? What made me do it is because we can't be just saying something, verbally say it, Black Lives Matter. We need to say it and have the proof and the backing that this is happening. So when people saw what we have been talking about and learned all our lives, that police, the slave patrol, now it's in front of you. But even the one that everybody said, how did you do this? I said, in October when I first started, when we unveiled it, I had red eyes from crying. I was devastated. I had to talk to a friend who's a mental health counselor. I didn't have any idea how disproportionate. I knew about the sexual assault on Black women by police. But say her name, you got to know what they've been doing to us for years. They've been raping us for years. Then we found the list. And it was thousands and thousands of names of women. So when you have the information and the knowledge, then you can use that to educate others. But unless you know that and you're willing to understand, it's all around us. But if you don't know what you're fighting, you'll just be fighting, and it won't be useful. The battle won't be useful. So education, we can no longer just march. We got to deal with the policies and the procedures.
I agree.
And share the information. Because the one thing they don't like about me is when you call me, I'm going to give you the data and information. But the other thing is, you ain't got to believe me. Go to this website, go here, find out for yourself. Because now I need you to tell 10 more people. And so when people understand, then we come up with a better strategy. Now that we know about Tulsa, now that we know about Rosewood, now that we know about Ocoee, now that I'm finna read out the Red Summer of 1919. I mean, how many did they have? Charleston, Philadelphia, Longview, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Knoxville, Elaine. All of that happened one summer. All of these riots, killing Black people. Now that you know what they do and they don't want you to know your history, what you gonna do?
Come on now.
Somebody to help you, and you start helping yourself. Because now you bringing some wealth and information to the table, and now we can better strategize on how to solve this not hidden racism, systemic racism that's always been there. I always remember people, hidden racism. It's not hidden. I see it every day.
Now, what do you want to add to that, Pastor Chip? I saw you writing down over there.
I have 6 things that we got to do starting immediately. Number one, we have to bombard our elected officials that are already in office. I mean, blow that phone up concerning the policies and legislation that we need enacted at this present moment. We already know that, especially for us that are in these red states or Republican dominated states, thank God we turned Georgia blue, but we can't just sit down on that. We still got some stuff in the actual state, in the state law house that we got to get together because they're trying to do some crazy stuff. But we have to bombard those telephones and tell these people what we need, what we want to make that happen. We already know that some of these people are not going to listen. So at the same time, while we're bombarding the phones, we as Black people and Black communities have to start creating our own political action committees, getting our funds together, collective economics. We got to start bringing our funds together so we can then in turn find our own candidates and fund them for the next election. Right. And we got to find those candidates and fund them through the political action committees and get commitments from them that, hey, because we are giving to you, this is what we need. We need this to be priority on your platform. Guess what? That's what they've been doing all along. We just got to, now that we know the game, we got to just play it. We got to get in there and do it. Then we have to organize our voting. We got to get people to those polls. We understand that they are trying to cut people off from the ballot box. So that means that we got to do whatever is necessary. If we can't hand out water at 300 feet from the polling station, go 302 and hand out that water.
Yes.
they started talking about here doing, where older people would have to have some type of a license or something and send in with their registration. All right, so churches got to get their copy machines together and start copying those licenses for those older people, so that they have something that they can turn in. Then we have to invest in our children's education. Those same political action committees or whatever, we got to start getting our young people in school. We got to, instead of letting them play football and entertainment stuff. Yeah, that's good. Do that on the side. But we need a few people that can go to school for political science to be the mayor. We need some folks that can be councilmen and all that kind of stuff. Invest in them so that they can come back and we can run those young people for those positions. And then the last thing is we got to shop black. No excuses. We talk about, the customer service. We ain't at that point now. We can't make the choice. We have to invest in our own people so that we can start somewhere. You can't have Greenwood in Atlanta if you refusing to shop black for any reason. We just have to shop with our own people. We got to keep that dollar in our community. It's said that the Asian community, that dollar stays in there in the Asian community for about 6 days, in between 6 days and a couple of weeks. But in the black community, it doesn't last an hour. From the time we get our paycheck, we already going to some other community to go to the check cashing place. As soon as we get that paycheck. So we have to make sure that we're shopping black and keeping that dollar in our community. Those are 6 things just right now that we can start doing.
This brother's ready to preach, Lawanna. I'm telling you, I'm looking at the next governor of Georgia right here. What?
Yeah, I know about that, because that circulation of the dollar is 6. But guess who has the longest? The Jewish community, 11. The circulate, it means it passed through 11 family member businesses, Jewish families, before it leaves. And he's correct. Wow. Even with our black churches, how many of them bank with the black banks? So as soon as we give our money to the tithe, it leaves right there from tithing straight to the white bank. And there's quite a few black banks that you can bank with, even a couple of them online. So even if you put $100 in, put the $100 in, because everybody like Lawanna.
I'm going to do that tonight. I'm going to do that tonight. So, give me the name of one.
I will. And then number 7, beware of the Dixiecrats, because Dixiecrat is a party that existed. But when African Americans start leaving the Republican Party and coming to the Democrat Party, there was a lot of Democrats that were, I don't want to talk about racism and this and equal. I don't want that. So they created a party called Dixiecrats. And they are still among us. They're registered Democrat. We got one, our mayor of Orlando is a Dixiecrat. And I ain't afraid to say it out loud.
I see. That's what I love about you.
I know a Dixiecrat when I see a Dixiecrat. So we have quite a few because they're Caucasian. And what is happening to me don't affect him. That's why that's why Andrew Gillum didn't win. He let them Dixiecrats come in there, steer him away from his path, and the next thing you know, he was not the first African-American governor. I don't care about his sexuality. I didn't care. I knew about it. It don't matter. Wow. But you were the one that people chose to make a difference, and when you got there, you did not come back to the people that put you in. Let them steer you away as if they were going to come. I'm telling you, they laughed and grinned in your face and didn't vote for you.
Ooh.
They didn't vote for you. And you lost by less than 100,000 votes.
That was sad. That was really sad. I left this up. Dr. Claudette Owens, she made a comment. She said, stop buying Nike and buy their stock. That's powerful. That's good right there. Yeah, I want y'all to speak on that, because the young people that are watching, whenever they get a little money in their pocket, it's burning a hole in their pocket. They have to go down to Foot Locker and buy the next Jordans or the next whoever is making a shoe instead of stock. I want you guys to educate them briefly so we can go to Tulsa. Go to Rosewood, but educate them what Dr. Claudette meant when she said that.
First of all, I'm one of the ones that did that. I stopped buying Nike shoes and started buying their stock. I saw one story of a young man who asked his mom for some Jordans, and she gave him the exact amount of the Jordans in Nike stock, and they kept buying the stock until at some point he started receiving stuff from the company. So the things that he wanted, he was getting from the company, but he was also making money at the same time. One of the things that we have to stop doing is throwing our money away and finding ways to have what we call residual income. One of the things that I was just talking about today is this fight over minimum wage. One of the things that Black people are, one thing that I don't say that we're monolithic in much, but in this instance, we are very close to monolithic in this. We love to buy stuff. We are shoppers by nature. One of the things that we like to do is we like to look good, and so we will buy shoes, clothes, and the whole industry of beauty and all of that kind of stuff is powered by Black money. So we have to find ways to invest in those things so that it can in turn make us money instead of allowing for, like we said, our dollars to leave that community, never to be seen again.
Now, is that why, Lawanna, when we are marching, that Caucasians don't take us seriously? Because we'll leave that march and go right down to the mall and spend money. So they're like, y'all can march all you want. Go buy my shoes. So we lost that.
It was a few, but we did educate a lot of our young people on that this go around. And we even told them, just not register to vote. I told them that, I don't always register people to vote because for every one person you register, there's 6 people that's already registered. But all you need to do is contact them, and it's less money to get them to the poll than to get that one person that you just registered. So we can use our money wisely. But what we did was we created a movement coalition, and it was an education of sharing information, going to city council meetings, learning what the policies, understanding what was going to be done and next, and being able to communicate with media or create our own podcast and get the information out. So this time around, it was more of holding our message. We didn't need media to come interview us and then go back and chop it up. So that was one of the main things I focused. But from an economic standpoint, we did buy back. Lawanna don't buy gas from 2 places. And that's a reason why, because we all got to remember Alex. Remember Alex, stand your ground. They were legislation. They are still there. That's why Walmart just got away from them, because people stopped going to Walmart and all of these stores. You need to know, like Hobby Lobby, who all supported Trump, Taco Bell. You need to see where their money go. And if you're going to give them their money, stop complaining.
Right.
They do exactly.
Now you just brought up a very great point. We're talking about history and economics. If we look at this whole thing, let's go back to Colin Kaepernick when he started kneeling. All the businesses wanted to say, Colin Kaepernick is wrong.
Wrong.
But when we started, not doing different things, when say like the NFL, Colin Kaepernick still isn't in the NFL.
Right.
But when we saw this George Floyd and we started boycotting the NFL, people stopped watching. Then you saw this time Roger Goodell comes out and make a statement on Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
When you see all these different companies, when George Floyd comes out, we want to make statements to gear ourselves towards black people, because we were missing that money. What does history tell us? If you look at that Montgomery bus boycott, and they started, not getting on the bus for a year and a half almost. They almost bankrupted. So they need that black money because what? We have over $1 trillion worth of spending power.
We are the sixth richest country in African Americans buying power is the sixth richest country in the world.
That's not a country.
That's not a country. We have the wealth. We have the buying power. We just don't know our power.
Exactly.
And check this out.
I've been talking this way for 20 years.
Yeah.
Ever since I left college, we've been having this conversation. I just would like to find those people. What up? I mean, and when you talked about, but remember the bubble, NBA was here.
Yeah.
And they was out at Disney, and Disney had them in the bubble, and everybody was like, well, we tired of Disney food. Was there any African American businesses that could bring them food? We had to say, yes, there is. And they were like, oh, and they talking about LeBron saying he don't want to come back to Orlando. Well, I don't blame him. It ain't PSTD. It's like, you're pathetic, but he was joking. And here come the mayor of Orlando, where he can have lunch. Nobody need to have no lunch with you. The Orlando is still number one in the country for excessive force cases in the United States. Don't you come here, LeBron. Don't you come here and be bamboozled and used. We all done sent him a message. Don't you come here. Keep talking what you saying. Mess with the money. Then they'll change. Mess with their money. So yeah,
I agree.
One thing that people have not really put two and two together with, if you ever look at the American national debt versus the buying power of Black Americans, the numbers are like right here.
Right.
Wow.
So
okay, guys,
I'm gonna just let that one simmer.
Yeah, let that one simmer. That was good. Listen, we're gonna move over to Rosewood before we get out of here, because I want people to know that. Listen, I know you guys came up with some numbers, 25, 40 different massacres across this country where Black people have just been killed just like nothing, and nobody's paying the price for it. Well, we picked out two of them tonight. The first one was Tulsa. We're going to talk about Rosewood, because Rosewood happened right here in Florida. Now, Lawanna, this is what I found today when I was researching about Rosewood. Prior to that day, when it happened in Rosewood, there were a lot of things that led up to it, that led up to that day. In fact, they said that, okay, check this out. August 5th, 1920, 4 Black men were removed from a local jail, Lawanna and Pastor, and lynched for being accused of raping a white woman. That was 1920. Then that was August. Then in November, just a few months later, 2 whites, 5 Blacks killed in Ocoee in a dispute over voting rights. The complete Black community of Ocoee is destroyed, along with 25 homes, 2 churches, and a Masonic lodge. Okay, it goes on. Then in February.
Wait. Can we go back just to okay. That's what you were told. It could be up to 300 people that were killed in Ocoee.
Wow.
Keep on going, my sister.
All right. Then February 1921, another Black man was lynched in Wauchula for an alleged attack on a white woman. Do you guys see where I'm going? It's all about Black men, white women. Then December 1922, a Black man in Perry is burned for an alleged murder of a white school teacher. Another Masonic lodge, Black church, school, and meeting hall were burned. Then here comes when did Rosewood? 1923, January 1st, Rosewood. Now, what happened that day? Lawanna already kind of brought it out for us, that a white woman was having sexual relations with a white man. Let's just put it out there. I'll say alleged, because nothing was ever proven. But the woman, Sarah Carrier, who was the lady that cleaned her laundry, who was in the house, said there was no Black man came in there and raped her. That was a white man she'd been sleeping with. Okay. And they got into a fight and he beat her up. And that's why she had bruises. So now she's screaming. People come. Her husband, who was the foreman, I think at the mill or something, and he gets all these white men together. They even went to neighboring towns. I think Gainesville. They had like Ku Klux Klansmen there, like 500. And they all came together looking for this man. Now they ended up at Sarah's house. And they went for her son, Sylvester, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they pulled this child out and they drug it. They dragged him by a truck or something. and they took him, beat him, and killed him. Okay, and then another brother, they made him dig his grave. Okay, think for this a moment, guys. I mean, y'all, come on. I need you guys to get your heart in this and listen to this. This is real. This happened right here in Florida. They said, dig your own grave, and then they murdered him, and he fell in his grave. They killed him, just like that. Now, there were people trying to, I know you guys saw the movie, Rosewood, and John Wright was the owner of the general store there, and he was housing a lot of Black people. But, I mean, what do you want to add to the story, Lawanna? Because, I mean, Rosewood was just sad because the women and the children got away on a train. But that train owner, it was Black owned now. They had a train. They were very wealthy Black men, came through there scooping up a lot of people, but they wouldn't get the men, Lawanna and Pastor, because they didn't want this white mob coming behind them. And then everybody would have died. So that's how you had a lot of women and children that got away because of this train. But what do you want to add to Rosewood, Lawanna?
The common denominator is a white woman accusing a Black man.
Always.
We still have that today with the Patties and the young lady up in New York about the bird watcher. Oh, I'm nervous. I'm afraid for my life. They've been taught it's okay to do that, to demonize and criminalize our color of our skin, especially our Black men. Even with women, I'm afraid of her. She look how she talking, she moving. I'm afraid. Here they come. And hello, Merry Christmas. How you doing? It's like, so that's their narrative. So the narrative is to say why? Because it works.
Right.
It has worked. So that's why we do this now. Every time I have a class, y'all pull your phones out and record them. Stand back. If a police officer say you cannot record them, it's your First Amendment right. You can.
But they're still getting shot, though, Lawanna. Even though they know that's their right, they're still getting shot by filming.
But why do we know about George Floyd? It wasn't because of what the police recorded. It's because a 7-year-old girl had the audacity to sit there and watch a man be murdered in front of her. That's why we know about George Floyd.
That's the only reason.
That's why we know about Castile. That's why we know about a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
Document. So if we have not learned anything from the massacres and the people who have sacrificed their lives for us, learn one thing: documentation, because documentation is history. And now we can bring that to this is a pattern. You always, that's what you do. That's what you do. Be mindful. The new app, the turn signal app. Do everybody have that on their car now?
I've never heard of it. What is it? Tell us about it.
American man got turn signal app, and I'm not savvy on phones and stuff. I just got rid of my BlackBerry, but I got I have cameras on my car. I mean, let's just be mindful who we are and what we bring. We are a threat. Therefore, we need to make sure we're protected. Do you not think some of my stuff is scanned in and in clouds? And I've told my mom, if anything happens to me, it's here. Do I not come home and some of the police be sitting outside my house? I'm a single Black woman with an 82-year-old mom. What you outside my house for? Oh, I know where you stay at. What everybody do. But the point is, why you out here? Documentation. All I do is go out with my little camera and my phone, take the picture, and come on back inside. I don't have to. The point is, we are winning, but we have to do a little bit more. Don't get complacent. So the lesson for Rosewood is up to 200 people lost their lives that day, all over being accused of something. But ultimately, remember, in the movie, they had a piano, they had a better looking house, and it was still about they were living better than the white people were in the town. And they didn't like that. It was about economics too. It's always about economics too.
Yeah, because in that story, the Black people it was like 200 people in this town, and it was mostly Black. No, because all the whites left.
But Rosewood was all Black. The adjacent town is where the white people live. Rosewood was Black. It was like a Eatonville. It was all black, but they were doing well. They had their own church, their own school. They were teaching each other to read. That's what it was. We were, even though all the obstacles that you had put in our way in 1923, these people were able to accomplish so much.
Exactly.
What is our excuse today in 2021? What is our excuse?
But let's talk about it, because I'm asking that same question. Well, for one, we don't know how to come together. I mean, on simple things. It's just so annoying to me, because when someone is trying to, like with George Floyd, you had all these people. We saw the video, Lawanna and Pastor. We saw it. We saw the man in his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. We saw it. And you got these people changing that to make us think we didn't see what we saw.
Okay, so, but you know what? Can I just say something?
Please.
The late Rodney King said, "Can we all just get along?"
Just get along.
And the answer is no, we can't. Because guess what? We come from different backgrounds. So what do you always see me or hear me say? Give me 2, 3, 5 people who are dedicated to the cause and see what we can do. It's stop allowing people to determine what success is by numbers. Success is what you accomplish in the policies in the education. When we stop allowing people to divide, oh, well, she only had 200 people this time in her event. It was 200 people on a hot tour. After we got a new law, HB1 bill saying we can't protest or we can sit in jail for 6
That's right.
waiting to be charged, and 7 people. Well, guess who's the plaintiff against Governor DeSantis against that? I am. I'm suing the governor for First Amendment rights. How dare you? And I didn't just sue. I just filed an injunction. So now everybody can go out and protest because it stopped everything. The bill cannot be inactive. It will be in court for 2 to 3 years. But Lawanna, I wouldn't have put my name on it. Okay, that's fine, but my name on it. So now what you gonna do? Still hide behind what DeSantis said when he went to Polk County, the KKK capital of Florida?
Yes.
And had all the white sheriffs standing behind him. Oh, we gonna show these black people. We tired of y'all saying we wrong. No, the next week we had don't forget us. We filed out an injunction. So it was 3 people that are plaintiffs. Now the ACLU is doing something and other people is doing something. But the point is, the first injunction was filed by 3 people where lawyers matter, and it stopped everything. And I didn't need to be all on the news and stuff. Matter of fact, I didn't. But the point is, I knew by doing that, we stopped. The injunction was enough. Now, what's your excuse? You still scared? So give me them 5 people that's not afraid. Let's go do what we got to do. So we need to stop letting people tell us what is successful.
Amen.
10,000 people to me is 10,000 people. But all I saw mostly in those 10,000 people that marched with us all last summer. Look at me, I'm in the march. But when we call the movement meetings and what we're going to do, our next step, and going over the 8 Can't Wake and all the policies and everything, it was probably 10 of us.
Ooh.
So it's not numbers. It's that we dissected all the use of force matrices within the 67 counties. And that's why we can say Orlando's #1 in the country, even though they done changed their use of force. We compared them. We've done that. We did the homework. That's why we know about mapping police violence. We send them information. Well, we can have, it does not matter how many people. Find me the dedicated individuals who want to make a change.
Now, so, Pastor Chip, tell me, how is it that it died so quickly? Tell me what you think. I know you weren't there, but when she says they had 10,000 marching with their phones, look at me. And then when it was time to actually do something, there were only 10, 15, 20 people in that meeting. How did that die so quickly?
I will use a verse that we find in the sacred book. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Don't nobody want to do no work. They want to do what's popular, but nobody wants to actually put their hand to the plow and get the job done. So that's how thing. That's how it dies quickly. And I think one of the things that happened historically is, as Ms. Lawanna said, the metric of success changed. For our foreparents, as they were coming out of slavery, they were able to have so much because they had nothing. But the one thing that they did have was their community and their work ethic. And they wanted to be able to build something that they never had. As we began to get into the civil rights movement and started trying to get into integration, our idea of success became what our counterparts had. And when we started to get more and started to see more affluence in that area, that work ethic changed. We decided that we didn't want to do as much. And thank God for affirmative action and things of that nature, and social programs, because they were needed. But we have some, that say because of the social programs, we'll just hang out and let the social programs do what they need to do, instead of using the social programs to help me get to where I need to be. Now, a caveat to that is the welfare queen was not Black.
Never has been.
Never has been. But as Doc said earlier, we have to be able to call out those areas in ourselves. And the truth is that we do have those people within our community that have allowed for the social programs to nullify their work ethic, to be nice about it.
But can I add something? Back when I was a junior in high school, I did a report about the welfare queen. And today that statistical information is still the same. 76% of people who receive public assistance are Caucasian. But if you need to demonize a community or a people, who do you put? She's lazy. She's this. She's the welfare queen. When you don't want to talk about your, and when I was on one of the most conservative white radio shows, when they were talking about black crime, and I said, well, 73% of all murders people are committed by white males, and they were like, oh no, she wrong. And here come the counterpart. She's correct. The numbers, the data, the research. I know he asked me back on his show since. But the point here, don't bring me on your show and you're going to try to tell me a narrative that I know not to be true. I won't be back on your show because you're going to get called out. I'm not afraid. You give me the microphone and you going to give me false information trying to push a narrative. Why y'all marching with black on black crime? I said, well, I haven't committed a crime, and I'm marching because I have nephews and my niece, and I don't know what they're going to get, but I'm not marching. But if you're going to talk about crime is everywhere. But you highlighted in my community because you need to paint that narrative.
That's right.
You can paint that narrative for those who are not informed, but this sister is informed. And she's going to say, no, that's not true. Now prove me wrong. If I'm wrong, show me the data.
Show me, yeah.
All crime is relative to its proximity.
Yeah, but they don't expect that out of us. That's why I would tell people economics and numbers. Your numbers don't lie. Statistics. I look at the numbers, and that's how I strategize, by the numbers. That's when you make mistakes, you learn from them. Well, what did we do wrong? Did we come out too soon? But it all goes back to, let's not allow people to define what success is. Right. It is not what they determine, it's what we determine.
So guys, before we get out of here, I want to do this because the purpose of this show tonight is to bring Black history to the Ella Johnson Show, because I want to make sure that I'm doing my part to make sure that we are well informed by bringing people like these two who are well informed to make you more well informed. Because when we know better, we do better, right? Now you won't be so quick to comment on those posts on Facebook when you see people putting down your race, because now you know that you have done wonderful things. And I think that is so important, because if you don't know who you are, you'll let somebody else tell you. And I just don't believe in that. I believe that you got to know who you are, and who we are is what we talked about tonight. But before we get out of here, I want both of you to address this. Where do we go from here? Black people, okay, you know about Rosewood. You know about Tulsa. You know what's going on in this country. You see how, I mean, I'm not making this up. You guys see it for yourself. You see how they're trying to disenfranchise the black vote. There's a reason for that, because that's where our power is. They're trying to make the economics not match. They're not comparable to one another. There's a reason for that. We brought all of that out. Now that we all know this, Lawanna and Pastor, I need both of you to talk to the people watching this broadcast. What do you as a person, we know about buying black. I know about that stuff. But what real things can we do just from in our workplaces, just our day-to-day lives? What can we do so we can help people watching this broadcast?
Pastor gave a list.
Yeah, he did.
He gave 6 things. And you start with what you can do. But the simple fact is, know your value, know your wealth, know who you are, learn about who your people are. Know that we're the queens and kings that built the pyramids. Stop telling me I used to hate when I would tutor kids in math. Oh, this is too hard. We invented math. We invented math. Know who you are. Because when you know who you are, then you'll know your capabilities.
Right.
And I'm not trying to tell you not to have friends with this person, but know who you are. So read a book, do something. But start with your household, within your house. Because the one thing I learned from my uncles, and they're all gone except for one, was they were all black farmers. They taught me about the Negro League. They taught me about black farmers. But what we did as a family was able to trace our history back to the plantation. But more so, we would have annual family reunions and sharing of information.
Nice.
So we knew who we were. And we knew what we were striving for. And we worked together. And we didn't always agree. Lord knows we didn't agree. But the one thing we always had was love and respect for each other.
Amen.
If anything,
I like it.
I gotta have love and respect for my people. I do not want to agree with everything everybody say, because there's no growth there. But if you respect me for being different and my
Amen.
and what my life experiences, see what we can do collectively together. Join the movement. Let's get on board. We got work to do.
Now, Chip, I'm going to ask you a different question, because you did give us a list. So you've done your homework. But I want you to tell everybody what they can get from these 2 stories. What should they draw from this? Because, yeah, we're talking about it. We're celebrating the 100 years of Tulsa. But what am I supposed to get from this? If I'm a young person, Pastor Chip, what am I supposed to get from this?
One of the things I think that we get from this is, just like Ms. Lawanna said, you got to know who you are. And don't allow for someone that does not care about you to define your identity. Know who you are, and allow for that to be your starting point so that you can be better tomorrow than you were today. On another piece of that, then we have to know what allow for our history to inform what we need for tomorrow. One of those things is reparations. Don't let nobody make you scared of reparations. We need to be crying out for it. Yeah, we're owed that. Like I said, from those Japanese brothers and sisters, they got their piece of the pie. The Native Americans, they got some of what they needed. If we can't get reparations, at least give us the 2 pieces of legislation that we have been had in sitting on the table in Congress for the past year, which is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the George Floyd reform of policing. At least give us that. But I'm saying we need to get some money too. It's been too long. So we allow for our history to inform what we need, and then that gets us back to those 6 things that we talked about. So you need to be contacting your elected officials, from your mayor to your person in your city council to your congressperson in Congress. Hey, we need reparations. Black people need their money. and we need y'all to call John Ossoff and Warnock and those clowns over in South Carolina and tell them, hey, y'all need to pass these 2 bills. We need this to go on. This needs to happen. And call their phone 100 times a day, every day. Get all your people in your family to call their phone so that nothing can get through except for the message that you want. Continue to tear those phones up until we see what we need to see. The only way that we are going to get what we need is by legislating what we need. And the only way we get that legislation is to play the game that they've been playing all along. They've been playing chess. We've been playing checkers. It's time to change the game.
And on that note, that's awesome. I have truly enjoyed this conversation with you guys tonight. I hope that people watching this, you're like, watch it again, especially for that list. Pastor Chip, you need to put that list out there on Facebook. That was so good. It really was. Everything you guys have said has been life-changing and wonder. I am so proud of you, Lawanna, because you do a lot of work. And I know that you might not always get the pat on the back. I know you don't look for it. I know that because I know you personally, and I know that's not who you are. But at the same time, I want to do that tonight. I want to give you a hug. I want to pat you on the back because you do a lot in Orlando. I see you. I hear about it, and I just say, that's my girl. Because you know what? I agree with you. I like that you're outspoken. I love it because you don't change. And I've known you for several years and you've been the same person. This person that we see tonight. So I want to applaud you and I want to give you your flowers, for job well done. I really do, because you deserve it. And Pastor Chip, you always come with it. You always come with it. I mean, you let the hair down tonight. So I knew you were going to be coming with some wisdom. What? He came with the hair down. And I love it. I love it. And I just want to thank everybody that watched the broadcast tonight. Share this. Because knowledge is power, and we shared a lot of stuff tonight. And if you guys want to fact check it, go do that too. But at the same rate, do better. Now, tomorrow night, I bring on a beautiful young lady. She's going to come on here and talk about those PPP loans. Yeah, we gotta address all that stuff too. Those people that got PPP loans, Lawanna, that don't have a business.
Oh, I know, but I had a business of 42 years and I was discriminated against.
Wow.
42 years.
Maybe we should bring you on the show too, because she's going to come on here and talk about fraud and what happens and audits and stuff like that. You guys want to tune in, because from what I've been seeing, there are a lot of people that are paying the price for fraudulently getting these loans. And so you want to tune in tomorrow to see what the IRS thinks about it and what's going to happen to you if you don't do the right thing. Right?
I got my first one, but my second one I didn't. And you couldn't say I wasn't business. You could find all of that, all my tax forms, everything. So I know what happened with Wells Fargo, that they're about to lose my business because they was treating the money as theirs. So they kept denying me and others because they got paid whether they deny or administer. So they kept denying people so they could go back and get more money. Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, that's all coming up tomorrow night right here on the Ella Johnson Show. Does anyone want to say anything else? Because, I believe in saying all minds satisfied.
Oh, just remember, Juneteenth is around the corner. Be ready, my brothers and sisters.
All right.
Because I do not celebrate July 4th because my people were not free in 1776. So we still not free, but at least celebrate the holiday and educate yourself on what it's all about. Just don't cook out, educate.
Educate. I like that. We may come back and talk about Juneteenth. Well, listen, guys, I want to say good night to everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show. We'll see you again tomorrow night right here, YouTube and Facebook Live. We'll see you tomorrow night. Good night.
Night.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show.